Good morning, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of Lessons Learned, the dumbest thing I've ever done with money. My name is Suzanne, and I'm the head coach at Grace Financial Coaching. And I am so excited to welcome Tracy Shunkwiler. Tracy is an expert in guiding her clients to exponential growth in their business as well as their personal lives. Tracy has a unique and holistic approach that brings full accountability and a new level of awareness to every area of their lives. I love that so much. And that helps propel her clients to tap into their full potential. Tracy's the owner and CEO of Coaching to Grow, and she is a life, financial, and transformational coach. And finally, she specializes in coaching those clients to recognize their blind spots, figure out what their current subconscious and their conscious mindsets are, and subsequently, they shift to a higher level of understanding and integrity. And it goes through all areas of their lives. And I have seen this happen. I know Tracy. I know her clients. I've seen this happen with lots of people. So, Tracy, welcome. How are you today?
I'm great, Suzanne. Thanks for having me.
Yeah. So, tell us about your coaching practice, life, personal, business, transformational. How do we combine all of these things?
So, let me just tell you, I'm in long-term recovery. Right? I've been in recovery for almost 35 years. And what I realized in stepping into my business and starting to serve people, and especially in the financial end, is I looked at how was I able to stay clean for all these years? What happened for me? And what happens to my clients and or our clients? Because we know that many people, so we can all get out of debt. We can all lose 30 pounds. Who hasn't been on a diet and then gained it back, right? So I was always very curious about that maintenance and how do we stay there? How do we change for a lifetime, not just for the meantime, right? So I just started diving deeper into the subconscious pieces and the financial scripts that we all have, right? Most of what we learned at probably before age 7. And we make 95% of our decisions are from the subconscious. 95, everything that you do. So you get up in the morning and you roll out of bed and whatever you do, and you flip on the light and you go into the bathroom, you make your coffee without any thought, right? Or driving somewhere, or now you've done this so many times, you don't even have to think about so many of the things that you do, right?
Oh yeah, I think a great example of that is, the universal experience of driving a car and you zone out and all of a sudden you're like, oh my God, I just missed my exit.
That's right. That's right. Well, we run our money that way.
Yeah. Oh,
our behavior around our money is that way. We don't even know. And we don't even know it's like, what are our values and are we living from those values and getting a chance to like dive a little bit deeper about where those values came from. And are we still living from mom and dads or grandmoms and grandpops, or does what serves us today, right? And really bringing that to a deeper understanding. A lot of times that's some really deep healing work too that comes with that.
Yeah, especially the pre-age 7 thing. Can we get back to that for a second?
Yeah.
That is so interesting because 6-year-old me didn't know anything about money, right? So Tracy, how could, I'm going to, play devil's advocate. Tracy, how could 6-year-old me and my experience possibly affect what I am doing with my money stupidly at age 26?
So imagine, and we can even go before, this is going to probably probably a little bit over the top, but we can even go in utero. Like imagine a mom that's so stressed out that everything that happens in your body when you're growing a baby, you're growing a human, is the baby feels it, right? So the baby's born with some anxieties, let's say. So 6-year-old, you have a family that, there's a divorce, there's a death. Mom and dad use the credit card all the time. We learn from those experiences. Mom and dad are stressed around money. They're buying, or they live in with lack, with scarcity or abundance. We can live it. It can be either way, right? We can take any of that energy and bring that into our adulthood, and not can, we do. It's not even, it's not a question. We do. So if you can go back and look at, that's why it's so important for us. We always ask our clients, right? Or like, what was money like growing up? Tell me a little bit more about that. And we think it's just, well, my parents argued about money, or my parents, we always had whatever we wanted, but there's more to it. There's an energy that's created. There's a cellular reaction or response that we learn because it comes from the subconscious, the learning, right? And that we end up responding or reacting from that place.
Do you subscribe to the notion of the lizard brain theory, where we go into that survival type response when certain things attack us or certain things in our environment are occurring?
Yeah, and I've heard you say that before. So there's survival patterns, and those
Okay.
patterns are created at a very, very young age. We try on different patterns. This is all my belief system, right? In my trainings, right? So we try on different patterns until we find the one that works for us, right? So, and then that pattern, we don't even know that we are responding or reacting from that, you say lizard brain, from that place for the rest of our lives until something happens and we have that opportunity, we have that goal, we have the opportunity to mine the gold, to dig a little bit deeper, and we can grow and heal from that space.
Once that survival pattern has been established,
Mhm.
how difficult is it to change that?
Well, first of all, the survival pattern and the fact that it has gold is there's pieces of that have helped you through the years. So we want to honor it. We don't want to get rid of it. We want to understand it. There may be ways to look at it and say, this is not working for me anymore. So how can I learn to respond differently instead of reacting from this place? So we all know, like, something happens and you get that sickness in your stomach, or you feel a little bit nauseous. And I talk to my clients about that moment when your spouse leaves the toothpaste lid off the toothpaste and you say, I want a divorce, right? That one little thing is that camel's back thing, that thing of like, and then when we can track it back and go backwards and say, what actually happened, right? What's really going on for me? What is that energy? What have I been triggered into? And money is everywhere. It's in every single thing that we do. It's interweaved everywhere, right? So I don't even know if I'm answering your question anymore, but what was your question, Suzanne?
No, with the survival patterns, I
Mm.
was thinking them in a negative way. I said, so how do you get rid of them? But to your point, you're saying some of those survival patterns were necessary and maybe need a little bit of altering, or our survival pattern was actually correct. What we were doing was helping us at that time. Can it continue to serve us, or does it need to grow as we grow?
Um, it can continue to serve us depending on where you are in your life, right? You learn that fight or flight. There's things that you learn about how to respond to people, or how to interact in some ways. Some of us are. I'm a people person, right? And I've learned that if I can, um, if if you like me, if you can like me, right? Then I can like me. That's a very early
Interesting.
survival pattern. If I can do something for you that you'll like me, then I'm going to be okay. I'm going to be safe in my world again. Right.
Mm,
Uh, and some of us learn other ways of having them. There's many different kinds of survival patterns, but yeah, they served us well, especially when we were younger. They really served us well for a while. And then
right.
in the awareness of what we do, that's where we can choose about, does this fit for me today? Does it make sense? Am I still living in that? Um, Listen, we all have trauma. We don't want to traumatize our kids, but we do. I've already traumatized mine. I know that they have wounds, right? You don't mean to do it, but we all do it. My
No.
parents did the very best job they could with the skills that they had, and I ended up traumatized. We all have it, and that's where the survival
Yeah.
patterns come from, right?
Yeah.
So, but am I still living in that world? Am I still living in that that intense fear of whatever it was when I was younger? I'm not. I'm not. So I
Right.
can look at what serves me. You know what this reminds me of? Just real fast, what we're talking about is,
Yeah.
did you ever hear the story about the roast beef being cut off? Do you know what I'm talking
No.
about? So let me see if I can tell the story. So the daughter says to the mom, why do you cut off the roast beef at the end before you put it in the pan? And she said,
Okay.
well, that's what my grandmom did. That's what my mom did. So let's call grandmom. We call grandmom, and grandmom says, well, that's what my mom did. So let's call great grandmom and find out, why did great grandmom cut off the end of the roast beef before she put it in the pan? Why do we cook it that way? And she says, because we couldn't afford a pan big enough. So things get passed on, right?
Yeah.
We pass things on and we don't know why we're doing them.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it just
Mark,
becomes,
good morning. Yeah, good morning, Mark. Love this story. That is such a great story.
yeah.
Oh my gosh, that's crazy. Yeah. And you hear the stories, the old, I don't even want to say old wives' tales, your friends who said, oh, when my grandfather finally passed away, when my great grandfather finally passed away, cleaning out that house was a nightmare because they came from depression and they held on to everything. And so we already have that in there. It's just that maybe not everyone's parents lived through an area where the depression was as bad,
That's
but
right.
that story can be extended through all levels of generation. It doesn't have to be depression era, for sure.
Absolutely. And it doesn't have to be
Yeah.
the roast beef in the pan. It's everything and
Right.
anything, right? I'm going to tell you another quick story. I was working in
Yeah.
school, and a fifth grader says to me, "Can I buy a snack?" And I said, "Sure. Do you have money?" I was in the cafeteria, and he went like this to me, and I thought he was telling me to wait a moment. So I waited a moment, and I said, "Do you have money?" And he said, "Yeah." And I said, "What is that?" He goes, "That's where my money is." This is a fifth grader. So I said, "Show me." So we walked in to the part where you buy the food, and you put your finger right on the pad. That's how they buy their food.
Oh,
And I said to him, I said, your mom and dad put money in there for you to do that. And he got mad at me. He said, "No, they don't." And I tried explaining to him. He said, "My parents don't put money in there," right? But that's what he thought. So imagine, how is he growing up to know that? I grew up with cash. Everything was money. It was 5 cents to buy a milk or whatever, right? So, but for him, buying a snack was his fingerprint.
oh my gosh.
Yeah. And how does that
It,
get passed on? What
oh
happens?
my gosh. Right.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Right. And what are I wonder, I would really love to know, like, what would you classify that survival pattern for that child as, like, with, I don't know where money comes from. I think it's magic, basically, is what it is. And how
Yeah.
is that going to serve him later on in life?
That's exactly right, and we can guess what happens, right? The implications of not knowing what, the cash using money. And we talk a lot to our clients, I do, about cash envelopes and what does it feel like to use cash as compared to swiping a card, even a debit card. Debit card
Yeah.
is one thing as compared to pulling out our cash, right? It's a different
Right.
sensation, it's a different feeling, it's a different energy in our bodies.
Yeah. Good morning, Angie. Angie says, my kids see this same thing at school.
Mhm.
And to Mark's point, they don't feel it, right?
Yeah, that's right.
They don't feel it. I am the and I've talked about this before, but I am the very beginning of the millennial generation. And so what they call us Zennials, the
Mhm.
Oregon Trail generation. We didn't have computers at home, but we had the ability to access them at school and play this horrific game on a
Yeah.
black screen with green writing on it, right? And I have that visceral reaction when I use my debit card. I do. I
Mhm.
don't need to carry cash. But I think people slightly, the end of Gen X, people slightly older than me, do need to really take a look at some of their spending habits in that 40 plus range would be a yeah, exactly.
Well,
So
mhm.
after the baby boomer, Gen X, but and that's probably the cutoff for it. Now Gen Z, right? Like we're talking about the youngest, most recent generation that's finally getting into college, out of college. They're going to be entering the workforce soon. They're actually, I'm going to use this word, but I'm going to caveat it. They're actually regressing. More Gen Z is using
Mm.
cash,
Mhm.
and people are, certainly big banks, certainly credit card companies, are looking
Mhm.
at that as regression,
Mhm.
that they're using cash.
That's right.
But people like you and me are going to look at that and say, one, that's probably good. And
Mhm.
then what I look at it and say is, why do you think that is? Why do you think the 20-year-olds right now are more likely to use cash than their parents?
It's a good question, right?
I don't know. We'll find out eventually, I suppose.
I think that we will, and I think that a lot of those kids were probably brought up with parents in debt and with financial stress.
I think that's a great point. Yeah. And maybe they've now gotten to a place where cognitively they can see it for themselves
Mhm.
and they don't want to be there, right?
That's right. I can tell you for me, so I'm 61. My my parents grew up in the depression. I'm what's called the sandwich generation, right? I'm in
Mm,
that middle place, right? We're taking
yep.
care of the parents who are no longer alive and then taking care of my kids. But I grew up with scarcity, real scarcity in my household. 8 kids. my mom was scared to death about money. That my parents fought, like really fought around money, and I did the pendulum swing. My kids will have everything and anything, right? I look
Yeah.
at pictures from Christmases and I go, I'm embarrassed. I'm embarrassed by the amount of gifts underneath the tree, right?
Yeah.
And my kids, my one daughter now has a daughter, and I believe that her kids will be brought up very differently without all that need to fill in with stuff.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I had a client who started working with me. Oh my God. I'm if she called me December 26th, I don't think I'm exaggerating. And she said, if you do nothing else, do not let let my mother force me to spend $6,000 on Christmas.
Mm,
$6,000.
mm-hmm.
And I'm talking her
Yeah.
husband, and 2 kids. And gifts for the mother and maybe the nieces and nephews. $6,000. That's
Yeah.
crazy.
It's
That's
commercial,
crazy.
not only commercialized, but it's that deeper what's going on inside of me.
Mhm.
What's going on that I need to buy these kind of gifts, that I have to buy things for people, and then have to deal with what that credit card bill might look like, or what my bank account looks like. It doesn't have to be the credit card bill, what my bank account looks like come January.
Yeah. Yeah. And for them, it was unfortunately credit cards. Hi, good morning, Cindy. Cindy nailed it right when
Hmm.
we said it. That
Yep.
previous conversation, they saw the devastation of their parents' debt. Angie, she's got a Gen Z client bound and determined to have a different financial future than what they grew up with.
Hmm.
That's
Hmm.
fantastic.
Yeah.
So let's go back to some things that Tracy may be embarrassed about. Well, I definitely created this show to help people realize that, we may be sitting here as the experts, but we've all done stupid things with money. So Tracy, what is
Without
the
a doubt.
dumbest thing you have ever done with your money?
I want to tell you. So when you say dumbest, I could list and trying to figure out which one that was in the conversation, right? So I will tell you the biggest expense dumb thing.
Okay.
Um, in 2008, and 2008 is a big date for a lot of people, a lot of years, right?
Yep.
So we were just months away from paying off our house that we'd moved in April 21st, 1989. That's how long I've been in this particular house. And we partnered with another couple to purchase a 10-unit apartment building.
Wow.
I had already been a landlord at another place in Asbury Park. This place was more local. And our partners had this vision, and we remortgaged this house for the umpteenth time, because I believe that every time I remortgaged, I was being really smart in putting my credit card debt back into my house. I will tell you that this house got remortgaged more times than I can tell you. Um, Besides the fact that when I originally bought it, I think it was at like 14% interest. It was a
Oh, yeah. That's a whole other
very,
conversation.
very different time, right? So we
Yeah.
remortgaged the house. I took double E bonds, cashed them in to buy this property. The property was in the high 800,000s. Didn't look at the tax implication. So we had the remortgaging of the house, the tax implication of the double E bonds, and purchased this property against the house that I live in. Just putting my own home up, my 4 walls up, to buy
Yep.
another property. 2 months later, the market crashes. Who knew? I surely did not know.
Nope.
We're underwater immediately. Immediately. In the 10-unit apartment building, while we were doing the contract, while everything was happening, there was a fight between 2 of the tenants. The property manager that was coming with the building got punched, fell back, hit his head, and became severely disabled from that point forward.
Oh,
That was in the contract process, right? That's obviously not about me. That's a horrible, horrible, horrible. And um, about So the market crashes. I pull up into the building. I pull up to the apartment building, and I'm going to go into my office, and I see out back there's all these people out back, like having beers, having a picnic, and I'm like, yes, like I bought a community, and that's what I wanted. I wanted a community. What I did know a little bit about the property was that it was a bit of a drug house. That if you wanted to purchase drugs, you were going to go there, right? And part of this was going to be that transition and changing this property over. So I'm just excited, and I walk to the back, and I'm like talking to my tenants, and to find out 7 of the 10 apartments had lost their job that quick. Yeah,
Oh my goodness.
that's a deep breath, right? It's like, oh, oh, so they're kind of like that's why they're all home in the middle of the afternoon having beer at a picnic. Like it wasn't even like what's I didn't even think about that
Wasn't a
piece of it.
Saturday.
It wasn't a Saturday. It was
Right.
not. And I will tell
Oh,
you, most left on their own, and some eventually, after many, many, many months of us being new landlords for this property, had to be evicted. It
yeah.
was a downward spiral from the very start. We
Oh,
did eventually turn around, but when I tell you the roughest couple years, the price of oil skyrocketed, our taxes shifted, and our house was up for grabs. So not
yeah.
only did we have this mortgage over here that we had to cut, that we were, and in remortgaging my home and the double E bonds, the E bonds and stuff that was for me coming up with my 10% because I didn't have the 10% to buy it. I
Right.
debted so deeply at that point, and then my house is up for and which would have been paid off within months too, my house. So
Oh,
um yeah, it's one of those things that you just go, I can't curse here, can I?
no, go ahead. It's not made for kids.
It was like shit. Like it really was. It was just like that.
Yeah.
Yeah, there was some sleepless nights there for quite a while for
Yeah.
all four of us, I believe.
Yeah. And one of the things it's not funny, interesting, but that you 70% of your building had lost their job in 2008,
That's
right?
right.
We kind of just experienced that in mid 2020 with
Hmm.
COVID. And one of the things that I have tried to impart on my clients who want to get into real estate, be it commercial, I actually worked in commercial real estate for 10 years. We a lot of my clients will say, "Well, I my retirement is going to be this fourplex. My retirement is going to be this a just a basic duplex, or a townhouse on a lake, and the other I'm going to rent out the basement or whatever it is." Um, Now we know
Hmm.
that there is precedent in the government for them to say to you, "Your tenants don't have to pay you."
That's right.
And so it's one thing to go back to 2008 and say, this is horrifying. If your building was a microcosm of society in 2008, 70% of the people losing their job, that would have been, I mean, I don't even know if the country would still be here
That's
if
right.
that was the case back then. That was obviously a very high percentage. But what about those people who owned rental properties in 2020 and people just stopped paying rent on purpose because they
It's
could?
horrible. It is just absolutely it's horrible. It's horrific. I've talked to many clients about wanting to buy properties, and I cite that you have to look at this piece of what happened, right? It's happened once. It doesn't mean that it cannot happen again. And I always share my
Right.
stories, my landlord stories. I have a few of them that would just make your skin crawl a little bit. So
I have been between commercial tenants where it almost came to blows, but I will say I never actually saw it come to blows.
mhm. Yeah, it's a hard
So,
place to be because you're responsible for these families too, right? The
mhm,
last thing you want to do is evict somebody. That's the last thing I want to
right.
do is evict somebody. I want to give them that opportunity. I want to give them that chance to, to turn things around. But yeah, it didn't work out that way for quite a while.
Ugh, yeah. So what would we do if we could go back? It's 2008. Your friends are talking about this 10plex and you're excited. What would we do differently?
So first of all, I would never put my house up for anything ever. Now my house is completely paid off now. And what a freedom that gives me, my husband and us, right? Um, yeah, I think that was probably as far as the mistakes, like that's the big mistake. The other piece is, as you know, Suzanne, the truth is I probably really wouldn't change anything because all that changed my life in ways that I can't even begin to know, right? And
Mhm.
changed other people's lives. And the opportunity that when the building did turn around, um, it was a pretty amazing opportunity. We did eventually end up selling it, but yeah, in the end, for the growth piece, I wouldn't do it.
Yeah.
For the financial piece, I mean, I would do it for the financial piece. Absolutely, it was crazy stupid.
Yeah. Yeah. We would definitely not be at the very least, maybe we would have talked to a tax professional before cashing out the e-bonds.
That's right. That's right. And we had my husband and I had no backup money. That was it. Now we remortgaged our house. We cashed, our cash was now out of our accounts. We didn't have the backup emergency fund. So there's the sleepless nights there, right? Like,
Yeah. Yeah.
oh shit,
Do
like
you
this
remember
is real.
anything dramatic happening? you guys needed a new roof, you needed a new car, you needed a new HVAC. Anything happened during that time that you were like, oh man?
So the property itself needed so many things that we did not need it needed. So as our partners and us come together and they go, oh, well, we'll each put in like 25,000. We're like, like it's those kind of things. You go, well, I can't really hold up my end. I can't do my part right now. Right. So, in my house in particular, no, nothing that I couldn't handle with credit cards at the time. We went further into debt. That's exactly
further
what we
into the credit card stuff.
Yep.
Yeah. Because that's always how it happens, right? We make one silly decision over here, whether it's a car that is not going to start once we go and pick it up, or it's a 10-plex that we shouldn't have invested in. There's always going to be these other things on the side. And that's another point just for home ownership, period, for any property ownership. The second you buy it, something's going to go out. I don't care who you are.
Absolutely. Yeah. I'm just going to jump because I want to just tell you just a real quick story if I could. Is that all right? The time?
Yeah, absolutely.
We owned a property, same partners. We owned a property in Asbury Park, a 3-unit apartment building. It was going to be my shore home, right? Asbury Park at that point was just changing over. It was a really, really bad area. And 3 floors. My 3rd floor apartment brought in a couch that she had found outside.
Oh God.
Inside that couch later, we find out is the largest host of bed bugs that the exterminator had ever seen by the time we find out where they're coming from. We end up having to sell the house after a couple of years because we cannot, at that point, they didn't know how to get rid of bed bugs like they do now because they had just taken over and we were putting thousands of dollars in a month trying to get rid of these bed bugs. Suzanne, when I say crawl, they were crawling out of the sockets.
Oh my God. Oh my gosh.
Yeah, we would have to empty it. They would go stay in hotels. We bought our clients new beds. We're like, because we had no idea. I didn't even know what a bed bug was, right?
Yeah.
So, that's just some of my. You don't want to buy a property with me.
I'm saying we might have to have a whole hour of Tracy just coming back and telling us horrifying stories, and then I'll tell you one from the commercial side, and you can tell me one from the residential side, and then we'll just go back and forth for an hour. Yeah, it is really funny. And Angie actually said these stories. Wow. Yeah. These are intense, right? Cindy, you're so funny. Disgusting. It's true. Yeah. Bed bugs used to be, I think, having grown up near New York, very close to New York City, a subway right away into Manhattan. That was a city thing. That wasn't even in Queens. That wasn't really even in Queens or Long Island. When I was growing up, it was a in the city, in the Bronx type thing. So that was definitely foreign. And then, now we know anybody in Brooklyn can end up with
anywhere, hotels, everywhere. We go in now. We always lift up the sheets. My daughters do that too. They'll go in. Especially my one daughter, she'll go, Mom, I went in. I lifted up the sheets before I even checked into the room. Can I see the room first? Yeah.
Nice. That's a good move. Oh my gosh. Well, Tracy, this has been so much fun. Like I said, we could probably do a whole hour on real estate together one day. Maybe we will have to do that. But I really want to thank you for coming on and telling us all about your financial mistakes and your honesty, and everybody who jumped in. I saw a whole bunch of people jump in and out. If you didn't catch some of Tracy's stories today, get onto the YouTube channel, Grace Financial Coaching, and check out the whole interview. And Tracy, I really appreciate it. And we'll see you guys next week for another episode. Thanks again, Tracy.
Thank you.